According to the most recent statistics, there are about 281 million people in the world who live outside of their home country. And about 5.5 million of those are US citizens that are living in other countries. Choosing a country to live in is a highly subjective thing. It's not like you can just go and plug a few answers into a quiz and have it spit out the ideal country for you, although there are a few of those online if you want to at least try them as a place to start. But typically when people are doing their research, it's a lot more nuanced than just answering 20 questions. In today's video, we're going to take a look at some of the sites that are available out there for you to use if you're thinking about living abroad. Some of these are paid services, some of these are free services, some just compare numbers, others are a bit more nuanced and subjective. But I only used a couple of resources when we moved. I don't know why. And it occurred to me that there's actually a lot more resources available to people now looking to live overseas than I was aware of when we moved to Bulgaria almost a year ago now. So I'm going to turn the camera around. We're going to look at my computer and take a look at some of these sites. One tip as you're evaluating which sites would work for you, take a good hard look at them, and we're going to do part of that today, and look at what they're actually selling. Most people don't just put resources out there for free. If they do, it is usually to get you on a mailing list or some other carrot to get you to purchase some services for them. So look at what it is that they're selling. If they are selling one-on-one consultations to go live in a certain country, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Just make sure you know what their agenda is before you commit. If somebody is living in Italy and that's the service that they offer, then clearly they have an investment of you choosing Italy over another country, because then you'll perhaps use their services. So just bear in mind that you understand which direction a website is coming from. Some of them aren't selling you anything other than there's ads all over the place, which is fine if you can look past those, or maybe they're ads for things that you actually do need. So when you're researching where you want to live, research the sites that are helping you research where you want to live, because you want to know what their agenda is as well. Hi, my name is Maureen. In 2024, I moved with my husband Jeremy and our 2 tuxedo cats to Plovdiv, Bulgaria, and I make videos for expats and wannabe expats so that you can make informed decisions. Before we get started, I just want to say a quick word about internationalliving.com. If you've seen my previous videos, you know I have kind of a bias against these people, but I do, and let me explain why. It's my understanding that International Living has been around for a long time. I believe they have an imprint magazine, or they used to. Maybe that's gone the way of the dinosaur. I'm not sure. But anyway, when Jeremy and I first moved to Mexico 15 years ago, International Living was really one of the only games in town in terms of expat resources. And I think they do tours for scouting out locations as well. The problem I have with International Living is, in my experience, they make everything sound like paradise. Everything is peachy. Jeremy calls it lollipops and unicorns, something like that. So generally speaking, I think that International Living makes everything just ridiculously rosy, and what you need if you're looking for a country to move to is the complete picture. So I've always told folks, as a place to start, International Living is fine. It'll give you some ideas, and it will certainly show you the pluses of various locations, but that should not be your only resource. So there's my 2 cents worth on International Living. You don't need me to dive into that anymore. You can research that on your own. Okay, let's dive in. Okay, let's take a look at some of these. These are in no particular order, other than I thought I would touch on the ones that I personally use to start with. But again, I didn't use that many sites, so that list will be pretty short. This is the site that I use the most, mostly because it was the only one of which I was aware at the time, and this is Numbeo. I will leave a list of these in a pinned comment at the bottom so you have all their websites. But Numbeo is probably the #1 resource online when it comes to pure statistics. These resources are going to fall into two categories. They're either going to be like Numbeo, where they are just statistical and they compile numbers from various people across the world that are living in different cities, and they just amalgamate all of that information and give it to you so that you can compare city A to city B. Other websites that may be offering a service on top of the information that they present. We're going to get to those later. Let's just look at the pure statistical sites first. Numbeo is a free site, and you've heard me mention it before. There's a little bit of hoop jumping that you have to go through when you first are comparing two cities, but not bad. So for today's purposes, let's compare my home city of Denver, Colorado to my current city of Plovdiv, Bulgaria, just so it'll be straight across the board. So you type in the city that you want to research, and if you spell it right, it should come up in the drop-down menu. Okay, so that brings me to Plovdiv, but that doesn't allow me to compare anything. Say that you want to compare something, that's when you have to jump through the hoops. So up here you'll see, but just once. Once each time you sign in. So compare Plovdiv with another city, and we're going to type in Denver, Colorado. Okay, usually at this juncture, it asks me to give them my email address and the city I'm living in, but it didn't do that this time. So here we are. So it's very cut and dry and easy to read, I think. Up at the top, they show you the overall difference in the indices to get a quick little snapshot of the two cities that you're looking at. So the cost of living in Plovdiv is 47.2% lower than in Denver, which is pretty much spot on. Jeremy and I have been here almost a year, and I always estimate that things here overall are about 50% lower in Colorado, and that holds true with our expenses as well. To explain what this means, local purchasing power in Plovdiv is 50% lower than in Denver. So what that means is for the average person living here, so a local, a Bulgarian, that their purchasing power is less than in Denver, which would make sense because wages in the United States are so much higher than they are in other parts of the world. And then if you scroll down here, it lists a variety of different items that you can compare. So it starts out with restaurants and then groceries and transportation, utilities, sports and leisure, childcare, clothing and shoes, and apartments and salaries. That is their cost of living. You can also check out their quality of life comparisons. I'm just waiting for them to make me log in here. Quality of life comparisons. Okay, where do you live now? Okay, I'm going to pretend that I'm living in Denver, even though I don't. And compare. And I really like this because it you don't have to decipher the numbers. It tells you over here exactly what they mean. So the safety index is moderate in Denver, whereas it's high in Plovdiv, which is one of the reasons why we're here. The climate index is moderate and very high. I'm kind of surprised about that because Plovdiv does have some pollution, but I'm going to take that as fact. The cost of living is very high in Denver and very low in Plovdiv. I did not need the charts to tell me that. And then in terms of, okay, so I guess climate does not mean pollution because pollution is down here and it's moderate in both cities, which makes more sense to me. Climate must mean the weather. I don't know what that means. So I'm not going to spend any more time on Numbeo. They do have a premium site. I don't know what you would gain from that. I've never looked into that. It looks like it's more for if you're doing it as a business or you want to look at historical data. Found Numbeo a great place to start, and it just gives you, just the facts, ma'am. It doesn't give you any kind of subjective insights life is like in various cities. Subjective. Okay, there's number one. Let's go look at another one. This one is called Expatistan. If you ever wanted to see all the little cutesy ways that people can take a word and change it around, start looking for expat resources because it comes up with Expatistan, Expatsi, expats this, expats that. It's very interesting to me how people take that word and just kind of put a different prefix or suffix on it, and lo and behold, they have a website. So this one is called Expatistan. I did not use this one when we came to Bulgaria, but here it is. So I've already plugged in Denver to Plovdiv. So let's hit compare and see what it tells you. Now this to me looks like a site that they have ads. So there's printable chair yoga for seniors. So they know I'm a certain age, so they assume I want to do some chair yoga. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You just have to learn to kind of have your eyes go where you want them to go. Now, all of these sites that we're going over at the beginning of this video are sites that get their information from people on the ground. So if you wanted to contribute, you could click on this pop-up box and put in any prices for your city that you know of, but I'm going to X out of that right now because I'm not really interested. So again, there's a lot of visual clutter here, but that's okay. Now, cost of living in Denver, Colorado is 200% more expensive than in Plovdiv, Bulgaria. Well, that makes sense to me when they said that Plovdiv was 50% less expensive. It's just looking at it in the opposite direction. And here's an example here. For example, you would need at least is in Bulgarian lev. I wonder if you can, I noticed on Numbeo you can change the currency. So I was going to put everything in US dollars just to be the same across the board. But I don't see a place here where I can do that. So that is a downside of this site unless I am just not seeing it. So just for comparison purposes, the lev is about half as much as the euro. So when this says 8,700 lev, divide that in half. That's about how much euro you would need. So what's that? 87 divided by 2 is 4,400. And the US dollar right now is a little bit is low to the euro. So I would say, I'm guessing off the top of my head. Oh, it says right there. I was going to say I'm guessing about $5,000. It's 5,204. So my guess was pretty close. Let's see what else this site gives us. If you're more of a visual person, I'm more of a numbers person than a charts and graphs person. So this, I mean, obviously, cost of living, the orange is Denver. Those are Broncos colors. I wonder if that was intentional. Orange is always, you know, housing, everything, clothing, basically everything costs more in Denver than in Plovdiv. And then they also break it down. It would be interesting to compare one site to the other. I don't want to dive that deep. This video is just meant to be a cursory overview of the resources that you might want to use. Now, this does tell you it's got some inconsistent or sparse data. It provides a reliable comparison, but it's not bulletproof. It's based on 149 prices entered by 28 different people. So that's a pretty small control group there. So if you know anything, what I really should do is spend some time and go out to the stores and see what things cost, but too busy making videos to do that. And they were last updated just very recently. Today is the 14th, yesterday. Okay, and then you can go down here, recent comparisons. Oh, we don't care about that. That's other cities. Now they're just trying to get me to click on something else. So view all the prices in Denver. I don't know what this means. I think if I click on detailed prices in Plovdiv, it's going to take away all of the, yeah, it's going to take away all my comparisons for Denver, which, okay, and this is in lev, but you can change the currency here, but you couldn't change it when we were comparing one to the other. So this site's a little bit clunky. I prefer Numbeo. There's just a lot of fluff on this site, but it's there. You just have to do a bit more digging to find what you are looking for. And if you are a person that gets sidetracked by visual clutter, this is not the site for you. So let's go check out our third resource. It's called The Earth Awaits, another site that I did not use. It looks like you can create an account for this site. I don't have one and don't want one, so I'm not going to do that. But this is the first time I've actually sat and looked at this site. So let's explore it together. To pick a monthly budget, a family size, and the area that you're looking for. So let's limit this to Europe. I'm going to leave the budget alone. Family size is 2, and we have a 3-bedroom house outside the city center, 3-bedroom apartment in a house. And And what are my options for lifestyle? Lean, modest, ample, opulent. We'll stick with modest. Crime rate, we're not going to worry about, and pollution. Let's not put limiting factors on here. Thing. Well, let's let them tell us what they are. It is the world's most flexible cost of living calculator. So this site looks like it's just cost of living. We track tons of information for over 600 cities, which actually isn't that many. So when you're talking worldwide, but let's click on search and see what we get. This site, my first impression is that this site would be good for you if you're just starting out. If you've already started to narrow things down, it may not have the city that you are specifically looking for. Based on the criteria that I put in, it's given me 21 different places throughout Europe, none of which I have heard of. Well, I've heard of Mint. Okay, there's Plovdiv right there. What the details are. I don't think this allows me to compare it to anywhere else. That's a beautiful picture of the Roman stadium, however. Way better than the ones I've taken. So it gives you an overview of the population, the broadband speed. That's important if you're working from home. The quality of the healthcare. Yeah, this is not a bad place to get started. Traffic index, it doesn't tell me what that, it tells me it's 77. I don't know whether that's high traffic or low traffic. I can tell you Plovdiv is getting clogged with cars on a daily basis. Crime level is low. I would concur with that. Average healthcare, don't know, haven't used it. Quality of life, 62. That they interpret as high. I'm assuming is based on a score of 100. Yes, it is, because that's why there's a little tiny white space there. So 97. Plovdiv is indeed very walkable. You can also click on the country as a whole, and that will give you some basic information. This is something you may be interested in, which I did not see on Numbeo. It tells you what the percentage is of English speakers. Take that with a grain of salt because that's countrywide. In Sofia, the capital, you're going to have many more than this 25%, but in the villages, you're probably going to have close to 0% people speaking English. So this is across the board, which at least gives you a place to start. It's telling you across the country that 1 in 4 people will speak English. At least 1 in 2 will speak it in Sofia, probably more than that. And some other information that you probably don't care about. Freedom, that's a big deal for a lot of Americans. It's the freedom score, political rights, that all looks fairly high. Let's see what miles and points are. Weather, comparing it to anything. So if you wanted to check out Denver to Plovdiv, you have to open up another window and go back and forth. And then the budget is saying about $19.26 a month. For 2 people, I would say that's probably about right. Ours is higher than that, but that counts expenses that we have kept from the US. And we also spend more on groceries than the average person, but I'll do a separate video on that. But if you look at these apartment prices, let's see, apartment 3 bedrooms outside the city center is $632.59. Yeah, ours is outside the city center. We're spending about $150 more than that, but that's an average, so that seems right. Basic electricity, heating, water, garbage for 96. We spend less than that. They have internet price. Internet 14. Yeah, we spend $10 a month on that. So I would say that's fairly accurate. So this is a good site. I kind of like this site. The thing about this site is I don't think it has a lot of different cities, and it tells you what to look at. So if you're not particularly interested in Sarajevo or Odessa, then it's going to spit out a bunch of stuff in the just getting started stage. And then clearly, sorry, but I have to backtrack on this. Kiev, you've got to be kidding me. I guess if you're only looking at cost of living, sure, but I don't think you want to live in a war zone. So you have to, no one website give you everything unless you're paying a resource to do just that. So you have to take some things with a grain of salt. Clearly you don't want to live in a war zone quite at this time. Now, a year from now or 2 years from now, who knows? We'll have to see how that goes. Maybe if you create an account here, then you can compare one city to another. I don't know. We can try browsing and see what that does. It does nothing. Okay, so it's basically giving you a bunch of cities in alphabetical order. All over the world? All over the world, yes. So you could spend weeks on this site just going down the rabbit hole. I'm looking to see if Bansko is on here. No, it does not. A B-A-N-S-K. Hang on, Bangkok. There's a lot of B-A-Ns. No, it's not here, which doesn't surprise me. Bansko is a small city in Bulgaria. It just happens to have a lot of expats. So I wondered maybe if it was there, but it's not. This, I would say this would be a good site to start on if you absolutely have no idea where it is that you want to be living. Next. This site is called mylifeelsewhere.com, and I have not done a lot of research on this one, but it does default to the United States, and you can compare it to something else. So that to me looks like you're only comparing country to country. It does. Country to country is tricky because cities vary so much within the country, but let's give it a shot. How do you spell Bulgaria? There's my flag. Okay. Well, that popped up quickly. United States to Bulgaria, quality of life, cost of living, and size comparison. Okay, this site is interesting. Look at this. Health. In Bulgaria, you're 31% less likely to be obese if you live in Bulgaria instead of the United States. That's amazing because the Bulgarians like to eat a lot of fatty meats and sausage and things that are just tend to pack on the pounds. Yet even with that being their kind of dietary staple, still a third less likely to be obese than living in the United States. If that's not a commentary on life in the United States, I don't know what is. Not a lot of fast food options here. And that's the same across the board in Europe. They have fast food. It's not part of their culture the way it is for us in the United States, where it's just embedded in I swear it's embedded in our DNA, where we're busy, we're all working lots of hours, and the drive-thrus are just ubiquitous. It's such a small percentage of dining out options in Bulgaria and indeed all throughout Europe, which is probably one of that and tend to walk more than Americans is probably the reason that our obesity rate in Bulgaria is than it would be in the United States. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox on that one. I like this that they show green lights and red lights. So you're 66% less likely to die during childbirth. That's interesting. So you're more likely to die during childbirth in the US than you are in Bulgaria. Is that right? In the United States, approximately 21 women per 100,000 die during labor. In Bulgaria, that's amazing to me. Everybody thinks the US is so advanced. Okay, I'm assuming these stats are right. Okay, however, you are more likely to die during infancy here. I'm assuming no one watching this page is an infant, although you may have an infant. So that's something to bear in mind. 5 years less in Bulgaria. That is probably undoubtedly because of the smoking percentage. We talked about that in another video, that there are, I think, 40% of people in Bulgaria smoke, which of course is going to whack a few years off your lifespan. So that's something to bear in mind, that even if as long as you're a non-smoker, I think you don't have to worry about these 5 years if you're coming to Bulgaria from another country. Much more favorable here. That makes sense. I like this site. It's a little bit different. I would use this in conjunction with Numbeo. I think the two of those together would be really helpful. I like this one. If you lived in Bulgaria, you'd see 98% less coastline, a size of country phenomenon. Clearly has much more coastline than Bulgaria because it's, about 8 gajillion times the size of Bulgaria. I don't know the exact number, but 8 gajillion sounds like a lot. So I kind of like this one. You can do cost of living here, but again, you can compare cities. Let's go see. Select 2 cities anywhere in the world. All right, do you have my city? You do. And you have this city? You do. All right, let's go see what this says. Compare. Yeah, now I like the site even better. Denver versus poverty cost of living summary. Denver is 2.6 times. That seems a little bit high, but it's within the ballpark. Okay, 2.3 times, 4 times more. Probably it's a little high. See what some of their comparisons are. Expensive restaurant, $20. Yeah, that sounds about right. A bottle of Coke is about double. About right. I don't know. I don't drink a lot of Coke. I don't drink any Coke. It's 2.5 times more. This site seems to have a little bit higher numbers than other sites I've looked at. But like I said, it's still within the ballpark. Local cheese, more expensive here. I don't know why. There's cows everywhere. Of course, gasoline is going to be a whole lot more here. That to me seems awfully low. I thought it was about 2 and change a liter.
I don't know. I just put the gas in the car whenever we have a rental. I don't really check the prices. Public transit pass, we don't have one of those. I speak to much of this from personal experience. Internet connection, that's about right. We pay about $10 a month. And when we were in Denver, we were paying about $75 a month. So those numbers are pretty much spot on. An apartment in the downtown area, yeah, that looks about right. And that probably is low for Denver if you're talking about downtown Denver. Prices are out of sight down there for rent because it's trendy. Childcare, entertainment and sports. Yeah, this site's pretty good. I like it. Yeah, it has a lot of ads that pop up, but if you can train your eyes to zone in on the information that you're looking for, then this could be a resource for you. Let's see what rankings are. Okay, that looks more like a mishmash than actually things that you're particularly interested in. They do have a sign-in page as well, so you might want to check that one out. The last statistical type site that I want to talk about today, and this one is a little bit different, and you've heard me mention this before, is the Global Peace Index. Peace Index takes all of the peace-related information for a country and aggregates it into a certain score, and then all of the countries, or most of the countries in the world, are ranked. The thing I like about the Global Peace Index is it looks at your peace in terms of crime. So it's certainly not peaceful if you're worried about walking down the street and getting mugged, all the way up to things like military interventions and mass shootings and those type of things. So it's across the board. This may not be important to you if you live in a more peace living, low crime country. But Jeremy and I came from the United States, where, of course, mass shootings and military action are always on the front page. And then we spent time in Ecuador, which is just a mess politically in terms of the drug cartels and also crime, petty crime there is just off the charts. So those are very important things to us. So the Global Peace Index is a big deal. But that's all that this ranks. It does not rank cost of living or anything else. And I happen to know what the rankings are for both Bulgaria and, well, actually Bulgaria, Ecuador, and the US. So on the top of the page, it tells you the top 10 that have, and Iceland and Ireland always rank up high. I don't know what year. Did they do 2025 yet? Yes, it does say. Well, actually, I probably don't know what these rankings are then for those three countries because we use 2024 stats. So the best way to find, I mean, certainly read through all this. It's fascinating reading. It tells you exactly what criteria that they used. But hang on, I want to find the actual report. Who moved my cheese? So Bulgaria is still at 29. That was also 29 from last year. But there was also, I mean, I thought I downloaded it as a PDF. I was trying to find this as a PDF because I knew that's what I had used. And all I could find without actually going into a deeper dive in a PDF was to go back to 2024. Since the purpose of this is just to show you the resource, I'm not going to go crazy trying to find it. Maybe that 2025 data is still new and it hasn't been put into PDF format yet. Another one I'm going to touch on briefly because it came up high in Google search results when I typed in, I don't know, resources to help me decide where to live, is Remitly. And I looked at that, and I know from living overseas that Remitly is a site that allows you to send money. And I thought, what are they doing in the immigration business? Yes, it's tangential to what they do. So I did a little bit of digging on here. They allegedly give a report on the best countries to relocate to in 2025. Anytime I see the words best or should, I want to run screaming from the room because best is very subjective, and that's kind of a clickbaity term. When I hear the word best, it does not entice me to click on the link, which I don't even see here. The only reason I bring this up is because it looks kind of like a helpful resource when you first look into it. But then if you want to, say I wanted to do a deeper dive and go into Bulgaria, so you click on their drop-down menu here, Bulgaria. It takes me to a site to send money to Bulgaria from the United States. So it's basically just a way for them to get you to book their services. Now, don't get me wrong, Remitly is a great resource for transferring money from one country to the next without having to pay wire transfer fees. It's much less expensive, but under the guise of resource in terms of helping you decide where to live, no, just no. I just don't think it's your best bet. This one is literally called whichcountrytomoveto.com, so that explains it all. I haven't looked at this one yet either. Let's see what this does. They have tools. Country selector, country compare, world map, cost of living. Yeah, this is starting to get repetitive. That's why I said pick 3 or 4 of the sites that just resonate with you and use them from there. So this has a lot of 10 best countries to move to for a successful hospitality. I mean, that's pretty hospitality career. That's pretty specific based on quality of life. I think that's more city-based than country-based. 10 different lifestyles. I see these blog posts and they're just kind of, to me, they're kind of fluffy. How to land a hospitality job, is hospitality where they're coming from? Because that's all I see here is the word hospitality. Researchers in 2025. That would be the countries with the best internet speed, I would guess. Plan your global move with confidence. Yeah, I'm trying to get a sense of what, remember I told you at the beginning about, see what their agenda is? I am not getting a sense of what their agenda. Get personalized country recommendations with our AI wizard. Oh boy. Read our guides is on. Okay, this is the same thing as was on the last page. The career. That seems to be what their focus. Digital nomads. What are they selling me? Tools. Country selector. Where are you currently based? All right, let's see. Nothing found. You never heard of country? Oh, so this only goes by country. Continue. One of them, their quizzes. Let's go down this rabbit hole. Regions are you interested in? Let's say we're interested in Europe. This factor to you. We're going to say it's very important. Political environment suits you best. I don't do politics. We're going to skip this question. Language. Places where one of my languages primary. Place where my common secondary. Let's try that. Happy to learn local language? Let's try that. Climate. Well, that's a ridiculous question because it goes by the city. Okay, sorry. Let's go with tropical warm. None of those. Temperate, I guess. Temperate with 4 seasons. I don't like it too hot or too cold. I have a very small window of comfort. What healthcare system? Say public and private. What cultural environment? Western. Yeah, this is different. European culture, I guess. I'm just arbitrarily slapping things in here at this point. Which job market appeals to you? Development, highly development, well developed, developing. Questions. I'm for civil liberties. Country match. Romania, Portugal, the Netherlands, and Spain. That's lovely, except Romania. Well, that's only one country over from Bulgaria, so that's not terribly wrong, except that I don't believe anything asked me about my cost of living. If it did, I have forgotten. So this is kind of what I told you at the beginning of this video about spitting answers into, putting information into a quiz and having it spit out answers. They're kind of fun and interesting, but I would not use it as your primary source to decide where you want to move to. I can't get a sense of what this site is selling or what angle they're coming from. They're doing it to make money somehow. They're not doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to get a sense. And now I'm clicking on their blog. Just keep spinning and spinning. So I'm going to leave this one. I don't know what their agenda is, but you can try it out for yourself and see what you think. This one is called Expatsi, and I know a little bit about this site, very little, because if I have it correct, their people that set this up, they were featured on a CNN article, oh, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, because I remember the name Expatsi, and they moved to either Portugal or Spain. And once they moved over there, they set up their own business to help other expats. Bear in mind, with these kinds of sites, however, is vetted are their resources. So if the folks that own this site are based in 1 or 2 countries, those are the countries that they're going to be familiar with. And nobody can be proficient in all the countries in the world. The only way that you can pull all those resources together is to subcontract those out to other people. And that raises the question of how do they list their resources? Are they what I call pay to play, meaning it's basically just a directory site where anybody who coughs up the advertising money can be listed here? You can find that out on your own. You don't need another site to put it together for you. And I'm not saying this is what this site does. We're going to go spend 5 minutes on it and check it out ourselves. But just be very much aware when you see a lot of resources on a website, find out where they what their criteria is. Now they have a member, oh, they have a test. Want to take this test too? Yeah, what the heck. I think this is hysterical because I didn't necessarily put my own criteria in here. As you can see, I kind of slapdash through it. And what does it come up with for number one? Yeah, which actually was indeed our number one country when we were looking. So it could be coincidence because I don't think the quiz is that good. Interesting, because Slovenia came up as number one and that was high on our list. I don't know how these are ranked. Maybe Slovenia is number 10. I'm not sure. Slovenia, let's see what else they got. Poland. Some of these are too close to Russia for my taste. Greece, too hot. Estonia, yeah, a lot of countries up by Russia, which would make me a little anxious. Lithuania, Jordan. I know nothing about Jordan. Ghana, Malaysia. Yeah, considering I just threw in a bunch of unrelated stuff that was not, I wasn't basing it on any example or my own criteria. Albania was also high on our list. So Uruguay, this would be a fun quiz for you to take. Especially if you don't have any idea where it is you want to live. This seems like more than 10 to me. It feels like it's just scrolling and scrolling. Montenegro also came up high on the list. Chile. Okay, again, don't use quizzes as the de facto criteria, but it's a fun thing to get started with. What beyond the test, which was fun, but I'm not sure how helpful it is. Move abroad membership. Okay, so they have a membership, Make Your Dreams a Reality, with our new program designed for people with move abroad mindset. Gain access to personal community, discounts on one-on-one consultations, private coursework, weekly. Yeah, okay, this is gonna cost you. And they got a lot of, why Expatsi? If you're like us, you've been dreaming of living abroad. Some place is better, maybe someplace cheaper, but definitely someplace different. Your reasons for leaving and your idea. Nobody can help you decide where you want to move to, but if you want resources, somebody who's already been through the process makes sense to be a resource for you. Just make sure you know what it is they're selling. They have to be totally objective if you truly don't know where it is you want to go. If people come to you and they have an agenda of their favorite countries, that is not, and I'm not saying these people do, that is not going to work for you. These folks do group scouting trips. That's how they make their money. If you're unclear on where it is you want to move to and you want a professional tour guide that specializes in scouting trips, then I would definitely look into this site. This is one of those sites that's going to give you a lot of different consultants, I think. Well, maybe not. Book with Emily. Yeah, I would want to know who Emily is. Is Emily part of their Expatsi family? Does Emily pay for this blog post? I would want to find out about us. Let's see. We couldn't find any one-stop resources to find these details when we looked. That part's true. So we created Expatsi to help others who want to. So their basis is people that want to leave the US. So that makes sense. Find their new home abroad, any number of reasons. Fluff, fluff, fluff. The test is fun, free. Yeah, they're putting a lot of emphasis on this test. I don't know, jury's kind of out on this one. Oh, experts. See all the experts. They're expat experts. Questions? Meet our partners who have expertise. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Who are these people and how are they qualified on this site? That's the first question I would ask them before I would just blindly assume that these folks are the best. They may just be paying a fee to be listed. I honestly don't know. Okay, I've spent a lot of time on Expatsi, so I'm going to get out of this one now because they're getting more time than anybody else. And the reality is I just don't know. But check out the site, poke around, see what you think. But this seems more like a one-on-one consultation or a tour guide, which if that's the direction you're coming from, this would make sense for you. In addition to the sites that I've gone over, there are also a handful of sites that I used to look for statistics on very specific things. So I'm going to add these to the list because you might find them helpful as well. This one from the globaleconomy.com ranks countries in terms of their political stability, and that's certainly an important factor that you would want to consider. And this one from the World Resources Institute ranks countries in terms of water stress, among other things. But this was important to both of us, but Jeremy in particular voiced this. He did not want to go to a place where we would be more of a strain on a place that had limited water availability. So this was a site that I used to check if any of the sites we were interested in had that issue. So we found that to be helpful. One other aspect that would be helpful for you to gauge, particularly if you're not bringing a vehicle with you or plan to buy a vehicle once you arrive is the walkability of various cities. Unfortunately, I have not been able to find a resource that just ranks the cities or attributes a score to how walkable a city is. I can find them for throughout the US, but I can't find them worldwide. I just Googled ranking of cities worldwide by walkability, and you'd think this would be it, the Global Walkability Index, but I downloaded it and it was just it was not a ranking. It was not they may have high hopes, but they're not there yet. So I mean, there's the 20 most walkable cities. That's almost as bad as, the best and the shoulds. So I don't really have that resource for you, but if you find one, please post it down here. I, for one, would like to see it. I know a lot of folks out there would as well. I think we should stop there. As I mentioned earlier, there are certainly many, many, many more resources out there available to you. And I'm going to clean up this little table that I put together and put it as a shared document in a pinned comment so that you can have it. What it comes down to for me, and I'm sure my own bias has shown through in this video, is the sites fall into two categories. One is that Just the Facts site, which appeals to me because I like to draw my own conclusions. I don't like someone telling me this is the best country for you and this is the country you should move to. I would much rather ask my own questions. But other people may feel differently and they may want a more generic overview or other opinions, and that's fine. What you want to do is find the source that's going to give you the most information so that you can make an informed decision. That's the whole point of going over all of these resources. So dive into this list, see which ones will work for you. You can certainly Google or use AI for other resources. And if you find one that you like, put it down below because that would benefit all of us.
So that wraps up my review of some of the available sites that are there for you if you're looking to research various countries to live in. What we looked at today is by no means an exhaustive list. You could spend weeks just researching the sites to help you research the country. If I were undertaking my search today, I think I would pick 3 to 4 of those that offer different perspectives and then just disregard the rest. Use the ones that work best for you. If you have too many sites, you're going to get information overload and you're just going to be a deer in the headlights and not know where to start. So cull it down to 3-ish sites that you really like and then start plugging in your criteria, and hopefully these sites will help you narrow down your decision. If you are an expat or an expat in training and you are in the research process and you've used other sites, please list it in the comments so that we can all benefit from your wisdom. Thanks for liking and subscribing, and we'll see you next time. Bye.